Hello and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, science fiction, and horror novels. I'm Evan.
And I'm Chad.
And on today's episode of the Friday Forge, Chad and I will be discussing The Veldt, a short story by Ray Bradbury, appearing originally as The World the Children Made in the September 1950 issue of the Saturday Evening Post. The Veldt was republished under its current name in the 1951 anthology, The Illustrated Man.
Wow, this was published in the newspaper?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the...
Do they do things like that
I don't even
still?
know what the Saturday Evening Post is.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a newspaper, right? You know, like any sort of post.
Right,
Like,
in the 50s.
I've never heard of like stories like this being in.
They used to publish short stories in magazines like all the time.
Yeah, I used to read them in Reader's Digest sometimes when I was a kid.
Yeah, this is how a lot of things used to be done. Like, you know, people would just like publish little short stories and then it would appear in some kind of periodical. And then if it was really good and really popular, they'd put it in some kind of anthology. And that's The Illustrated Man. It's the first, I mean, at least in my copy, it's the first story in The Illustrated Man, if you don't count like the introduction when the man on the hill like meets the actual Illustrated Man. Have you read The Illustrated Man, Chad?
No.
Oh, so I'll just fill everybody in just a little bit. Like the very first part of The Illustrated Man and kind of like the little interludes between each story. Like each story is a tattoo on this illustrated man that a guy is like seeing. Well, yeah. So like at night when the Illustrated Man kind of like lays down, his tattoos kind of come to life. And it's this other guy seeing these things playing out on his body as tattoos, which is the coolest idea. Yeah.
That is so cool. He's like, I got a bunch of short stories. How can I link them all together and make it super interesting? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Bradbury is just fantastic. I haven't read a whole bunch. Like, I mean, obviously I read Fahrenheit 451 and I've read Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is another really excellent book.
I have, but it was years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and I've read Zen and the Art of Writing, which is kind of a nonfiction, kind of like his musings on the writing process, and kind of almost like a chronological order from when he's really young to when he's older. But yeah, he seems to really have a fascination with technology, futurism. He likes these kind of little cautionary type tales, I think.
Yeah, and not only just the technology, but specifically how it affects the people.
Yeah, I think he zooms right in on like how this is really affecting people. Yeah, so without further ado, I mean, we always encourage our listeners to go read the short story, check it out. Doesn't really take very long at all. I mean, this took us like 15 minutes to read, but this is a recap to get you refreshed on what happens in this beloved and eerie cautionary tale. The story centers on the Hadley family living in an automated house called the Happy Life Home. The house is fitted with various machines that aid them in everyday tasks, such as bathing, tying their shoes, and cooking their food. The two children, Peter and Wendy, frequent a room called the nursery, a large, crystal-walled chamber that realistically reproduces any place they imagine. Over time, the children have become obsessed with this room. The parents, George and Lydia, grow concerned that the nursery is stuck on an African landscape setting, with lions in the distance, eating an unidentifiable animal carcass. There they also find recreations of their personal belongings and hear strangely familiar screams. Wondering why their children are so enamored with this grisly scene, they call a psychologist named David McLean. The psychologist suggests that they turn off the house and learn to be more self-sufficient. Peter and Wendy break down in tears at this news and beg their parents to let them have one last visit to the nursery. The parents give in and allow the children more time in the nursery. When George and Lydia return to the room, the children lock their parents into the nursery with the pride of lions, and the two realize that those familiar screams belonged to simulated versions of themselves. Shortly after, David, the psychologist, comes around to look for George and Lydia. He finds the children enjoying lunch alone in the nursery, watching the lions and vultures eating carcasses in the distance.
Okay, first off, those are some effed up kids, man.
Well, let's talk about it. Why are they so fucked up?
I mean, first off, just bad parenting.
I think that it's really important to go into this without... I don't want to sound curmudgeon-y. You know what I mean? Because do you know what I'm trying to say?
No.
I think that, and I don't think that Bradbury was necessarily trying to do this either. Like, I'm not trying to, like, claim that I know exactly what his intention was here. I mean, this is obviously, like, pretty on the nose, but he wasn't saying, like, technology is like, I remember back in my day when we had to
No,
pull our
no,
own
I don't
water,
think
and like,
so.
I mean, obviously this is a cautionary tale about like how technology could affect us negatively. And it's not necessarily him being like a Luddite and saying, "Oh, I we got to get rid of all of it" or anything like that. So, I just don't want to go into this and be like, we're all on our cell phones too much." It's like, yeah, wild, Evan and Chad, like totally,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah, I've got
yes,
the Library of Alexandria in my pocket plus some.
there are a lot of benefits to having the technology that we do, but I think that, we got to think about the time period that this was written in, like 1950. That is a really long time ago. They had no idea what technology was going to develop into.
No, like what was coming their way in the very near
Yeah, I
future.
mean, and obviously, I mean, technology today does have, there are a lot of drawbacks to it. Like, I have definitely felt my ability to pay attention to things, my attention span has definitely been affected by things like TikTok, by Reddit, being on my phone. God,
Oh,
I'm on my phone
absolutely.
so much, it's ridiculous. And I think that what Bradbury was trying to say in this story, especially, and you kind of hinted at it in the introduction there, is that it's probably mostly messing with our relationships. Like, I think that's
Yes.
what he was worried about, is like, because of all this convenience,
Replacement.
yeah, replacement. And like the parents in the stories say it pretty overtly. They say that they don't feel like they're needed anymore. They're smoking more, they're
Right.
drinking more. What are you supposed to do to fill in all this time when everything's taken care of for you? How do you talk to people? Like, and I think, yeah, it's really, really relevant. Even though, I don't think that you could have known in 1950 just how far we took it. We sent it a little hard there, bud.
Oh, yeah. What year did he write this?
19. Well, I
1950
don't know what year
something?
he wrote it. It was published in 1950.
Okay. I mean, this is insanely ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Like holograms and stuff. Like that's crazy. He's way out in front of the the field, the flock.
I think that Bradbury like really liked technology. He really liked movies. It was just always the thing that fascinated him. I'm sure that
Huh.
he was at all kinds of World's Fairs and all kinds of expos and things like that. I'm sure he was like right in there. He's a very like observant writer for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And this was definitely kind of a, I was going to say subtle, but not subtle at all.
It's not subtle.
uh,
It's not.
Talking about his worry of kind of the role that technology plays in our lives. Like, obviously, it's so useful, but like you said, how your attention span is, I mean, mine too, if I'm like going outside to just sit and chill for a minute, I used to never want to have my phone. I would be annoyed if someone called me.
Yeah.
And now I like get out there, and if I realize like I forgot my phone, I'll like go get it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and I used to have some of my best thoughts sitting out there. Some of the best ones would come and I was just chilling by myself. And there's an opportunity loss for having your attention constantly taken by something. If you don't know what your brain is going to come up with on its own without that attention, that thing taking its attention. Yeah, he really shoves in your face the worry that he has of the role of technology. And because, I mean, they have ridiculous
But they
machines.
would probably think what we're doing is ridiculous too. I mean, because I totally see what you're saying. Because there's machines that tie their shoes for them and brush their teeth for
Right.
them and bathe
There
them
was
and
a
things like that.
painter machine. Like they've
Yeah,
replaced art, like
yeah.
artistic expression is gone.
And I think that a little hyperbole is obviously going to happen in a kind of story like this. And I know I'll probably call this satire, but like it. If you think about it, there's a lot of technology that we use that people in the 50s would probably be like, "What? Why would you just wear a watch? Like, what do you like?
Right.
Why do you have a what's the smartwatch thing? Like, oh, it keeps track of your steps. Like, who cares? Like, why does it matter how many
Right.
steps a day you take? I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, like a good example is like the Keurig, the coffee maker.
Oh my
Like that thing
gosh.
is. I mean, I love I love a
So we
Keurig.
went from
They're
we went from
so
a
cool.
power boat to a paddle board.
But the
That's
Keurig,
what the
I mean,
Keurig.
okay, so the wild thing about the Keurig is that the Keurig is
I've
like
thought
a
about this so much.
representation of our entire society.
Yes. Yes, it
At least
is.
in
It
America.
yes.
Like it's just like you click it down and it just goes and it gives you a hot cup of coffee like pretty much immediately. And the coffee maker before that was pretty fast. It's like
Oh, it's like almost like it's the same exact speed. It just has to make a full pot. Like you can make one cup of coffee with a old coffee maker. Just put less
Yeah, but
water in.
you gotta like open the top, and then you gotta
Oh
put the
yeah, pour
filter
water
in,
in.
and you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
pour the water in the
Yeah,
back,
there's
and then
two
put
other
the
steps.
there's a bunch of little steps. And God forbid there's coffee like in the pot. You gotta pour it
Oh
out and like
right,
rinse it out and
and it's
stuff.
like a week old. It's all
Right.
moldy or
And
something.
like, so I can see he was really on the money there with like these kind of useless things that we are now like we get tied to them. I bet like I don't have a Keurig personally, but my brother does. And like if I tried to like tell him like, hey, you shouldn't use that. It's like super wasteful or like whatever, all the reasons that people
Oh
say,
dude, it's the
he'd be like,
worst.
no, there's
My
no way
roommate
I'm
has
getting rid
one.
of this. Yeah, like I'm
Yeah, every time I use it, I'm just like, oh my god, this thing. But it's delightful.
well, and the
I mean, it's
kids,
wonderful.
I mean, the kids are like obsessed with this room, and I think it doesn't really overtly say it, but like I mean, like the rest of the house in general, like it's the dad kind of like says we're gonna shut the whole house down, and they're really upset about
Right.
it, and I think the kid Peter says who's gonna bathe me and like paint the pictures for us and stuff. So they are very attached to this house, but most importantly, they're attached to this room, the nursery, which I think is basically virtual reality,
Oh yeah.
which we still haven't perfected, by the way. Like I
No, we
mean,
have
we're getting
not.
close. I feel
Dude,
like,
we're getting really close. Those gloves, like the not the gloves, the like the Oculus and stuff. I had a chance to try one for the first time like a year ago or something. I was shocked at how cool it was.
yeah, it's your whole field of view.
Yeah, I was on a skyscraper. I was scared.
Yeah, I mean, because when I first tried it out, I thought it's gonna be like, it would be like I'm in like an empty movie theater or something. Like it'd be a really big image, but just like black on it.
Right,
But no, it's your entire field of vision. I always wonder what
right.
it would be like to like throw one of those on and like put it in space or something, and then drop a bunch of acid. You know,
Oh my god,
like put on some music or something.
that would be
You could like really
awesome.
elevate whatever
Oh
experience you're having.
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard that
it'd be like what's those tanks that you go in there and it takes away all your
sensory deprivation.
yeah, it'd be like the opposite of that, but also dope while on acid. I've wanted to do a sensory deprivation while on acid. I think
Oh,
that would be
I
cool.
haven't done it on acid, but I've done the
Oh,
sensory deprivation before, the float
oh,
tank.
you did?
Yeah, float tanks are pretty popular in Portland, actually.
Yeah, Ben went through a little phase, and I think we still have one, but
So I've done it twice, and one time it was really cool, and I had a good experience, and it was really relaxing, and it wasn't like the kind of like wild ego erasing experience I thought it was going to be or anything, but it was cool. I had a lot of cool thoughts, and you do start to kind of see stuff after a while, and just it's kind of like that feeling you get when you're
is it
like,
totally dark in
yeah,
there?
it's 100% dark.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like that feeling when you're right about to fall asleep or just after you kind of wake up, you know? At least
I
for me,
love
that's
that.
what it felt like, or it was just kind of, it was very comfortable. And I was just having like much different thoughts than I normally would, and seeing kind of like mentally and kind of like actually seeing too. Like your brain starts to really kind of create images. And
Oh
I
yeah,
was only in there for like 15 or like 11 minutes or something like that, like not very long.
I've experienced that in a cave before.
Yeah, yeah. Some people do it for like half an hour to an hour or something. And then my second experience doing it, I went to a different place, and this place was weird. Like it was like a house. Like I got like a gift
Huh.
certificate to go do it, and I was like, "Oh, my last experience was pretty cool, so I'm gonna do this again." So I go to this house, and it's just like a house and like a bunch of naked people everywhere.
What?
Yeah. I was like, whatever. Like, cool. It's just like one of those kinds of places in town. Like, I'm just going to hang out, and like, I'll be naked too. And like, we'll just tell, well, we're all hanging out.
Okay. You can't just like summarize the story. Okay, so you
What do
get
you
there.
mean?
You get there. Is there like a receptionist place? Or do you open the front door?
Yeah,
Or do you
there's a
knock?
receptionist, and they
Okay.
didn't say,
What point do you get naked?
so there's like a big backyard, and there's like a pool, and
Okay.
everybody was just kind of like naked. And then
Hmm.
there's like a co-ed kind of like gender neutral, like changing room. And then in the back of the room, there's another door that had the sensory deprivation tanks. Everybody was really nice. It was just like a very like it didn't say on the gift certificate like everyone's super naked like or
Right.
anything. So I was like,
Was it just
but I
like
joined the party. I
a?
mean, I didn't care, but
Oh, of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Hell yeah. I went in Rome, but like, was what other services did they
They were
offer?
doing
Was it
like,
just like
yeah, it was like a healing house. You know what I mean? So instead
okay,
of thank
okay,
you, everybody said gratitude, and like it was like a very like
okay, okay.
spacey space cadet kind of place. But I was into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I was totally fine with it. None of that was bad. But then I got into the tank, and the way that the tank was built, there was a big like bulbous like light at the very the end toward my feet that turns off when you close the lid, but the light's still there. And I'm kind of tall, right? So my feet kept kind of bumping right up against the light every now and then, which just kind of kills the entire experience. And there was
and it would turn it on.
It wouldn't turn it on, but I could feel it. You're not supposed to be able to feel anything. And there was like this weird, I think the door was like broken or something, because there was this weird tiny sliver of light on the side where I had closed the door, and I tried pulling it down as hard as I could and it wouldn't go away. So I was just kind of laying there in a salt bath for like 15 minutes and nothing happened. So I haven't done it.
It's amazing how just that little bit of sensoriness ruins the whole thing. You know?
I felt kind of stupid. I was just like laying there. But anyway,
do you know that there's if I may rabbit trail a little bit farther on this, there's I think it's a university here in the States. I think it's here. There's a university somewhere that has a quiet room, and it's the quietest place on earth. And they've just made it very, very quiet. So you can't hear anything in there except for you can hear everything, apparently. And there's like records of how long, because like our brains kind of freak out. Like they freak out with the eyes, you know, if you're in the bottom of a cave or sensory deprivation, you kind of get the swirly colors and like it just wants to see things, and it's like, you know, kind of freaks a little bit. But apparently it does that like 10 times harder with sound, because there's always sound. Like you can't just like close your ears,
right? There's always you can close your eyes going on.
Yeah, and there's like tons of sound, like humming and wind, and there's always sound. And this is so quiet that like apparently there's like a record, I think it's like an hour is the longest that someone's been able to stay in there without like freaking out. You can hear your blood pumping, apparently.
Nope, no thanks.
Like it's just weird.
I don't want to hear that.
I would totally do that.
I don't know if I would want to.
It seems like why would I leave after an hour? I would do it, and with the hubris of of my ignorance, I would be like, oh, I'm definitely going to crush this record, and then I probably would.
Rolling it back to this short story, then the room specifically. Have you seen that movie Sunshine?
Sunshine? No, I haven't.
It's a really, really excellent movie. I think it's a Danny Boyle movie, the same guy that did 28 Days Later. It's about this crew of people that go. It sounds stupid when I say it, but the movie's really amazing. But they go, they have to restart the sun.
Hear yourself say it right before.
That's a dumb thing to say. They have to restart the sun. Like the sun is dying, and they have.
What's this movie called?
Sunshine.
I might have seen this.
Yeah. It's a really good movie. If you're listening, you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's excellent. But there's a room on the ship because the trip to the sun takes so long, even at a really high speed. Like the sun is very far away, about 98 million miles away. So it takes so long, and they're just kind of in there with each other, you know, and tensions are kind of high. So they have this room that it's kind of, this is what I was imagining when I was reading this book, is like, and maybe they took this idea, but it's like each wall is a screen, the ceiling's a screen, the floor is a screen, and you can change it to, you know, like a forest or the beach or whatever. And it's called like the nature room or like the earth room or something. And you go in there and it kind of like chills you out a little bit because you're stuck on this spaceship all the time. And so that was kind of like what I was visualizing, because it got me thinking, like, why was this room made in the first place? If these people are having this issue with it, there's got to be some kind of utility to it, right? Like it can't just, if it's $15,000 in 1950, which is probably an obscene amount of money.
Is that how much it was?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, it was like the house was like 30 grand, and then they tacked on another 15 for this room. At least I think they did. I think that I read that right. But anyway, it's a lot of expense went into this thing. So there's got to be some kind of utility to it, right? It can't be just like,
I just kind of figured it was like a TV, like a really fancy
I don't know.
TV.
I mean, because that's what people said about virtual reality, but I read a little while ago that one of the things that people want to start doing with virtual reality is kind of using it as like an empathy machine. Like you strap on this VR headset for somebody that's never seen like a third world country before or something like that, or like what it's like to live in like a homeless camp in Los Angeles or something. Yeah, and it's like you kind of like show people, you know, because people have like their kind of preconceived notions of what these kinds of situations are because they've never been there. You know what I mean? Like you've lived in a relatively comfortable state most of your life, and you see it on TV and stuff, but it's not the same thing. But if it's your entire field of vision and you're watching like a recorded video with sound.
Yeah, what a cool passion project. Someone should totally do that. Here's what it's like to live in the shoes of a homeless person in Houston.
Right, exactly. And I mean, so that's what I mean. It's like, what's the utility behind this, right? And it's like, maybe that's a question that Bradbury is asking, a lot of sci-fi writers back in the day, and a lot of people right now are asking, like, okay, what's the ratio here, like to how damaging this is and how much utility we're getting out of it, right? Like cell phones, for example. Cell phones are incredible. Like it's a ridiculous thing that we're able to communicate with each other the way that we are. On the flip side of that, it's kind of tearing apart everybody's attention span. Like it's not it's not ideal, you know? I mean, like I'm very pro technology. Like I really love technology. I
Same.
think for the most part, like I am really hardly a curmudgeon about it. Like I really do think that it's ultimately a very good thing.
It's a wonderful
But
tool.
man, like it is,
It can't become your life.
no, it can't. And so I think one of the main things about this story is these parents aren't ever checking in on their kids. Like even the psychologist, and you know, neither of us have children, obviously. So I'm not speaking really about raising children, but checking in with your loved ones, you know? Like
Right.
if you're with your significant other and you've both been on your phones all day, you know, I mean it's like it's not terrible, but it's probably not ideal.
Yeah, I've had rules before in relationships where it's like no phones allowed on date nights or like no work talk or things like that. That just kind of separates you from the technology a little bit so you can focus in on each other. And that's really important because I feel like, and I mean, again, I not to use your phrase, but I don't want to sound curmudgeon-y here, but I think it's sad when I see 10 kids hanging out in the park and they're just like sitting there on their phone. I'm like, man, go build a fort. Go
I
build a
don't know,
fort.
man. I don't see, like that's if all those kids were sitting there reading books, nobody would say anything, but their attention's still focused on something that's not building a fort, but nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, but
it,
like play D&D or
I
something. Or
know
maybe they are. I don't know. They're probably
you're
playing
right.
it
I just think
digitally
it's so
with their
silly
friends.
when somebody's just like, oh, like I see these kids all the time and they're always on their phones. It's like, dude, if they're all reading newspapers, nobody'd say shit about it. You know what I mean? Like
Right, right. Okay,
it's
okay. You're
not
making a very
like
good
it's the
point.
same thing, you know? Like have
Right.
you seen that picture? And it's like it's a bunch of people on the bus, right? And everyone's on their phone on the bus, right? And like, you know, you could take that picture and you could caption it with like a frowny face or something and be like, oh, nobody pays attention to anything anymore or anything. But if
Right,
you look
right.
at a picture from like the 1920s of people riding a streetcar, they're all holding newspapers. Nobody
Yeah,
wants to
they're all
talk to
looking at
fucking
newspapers.
anybody.
Yeah, that's true. And you can't even curate your own content on the newspaper.
Right, exactly. Like if they had headphones in the 1920s, you really think they wouldn't be wearing them to tune everybody else out?
Oh,
Like I don't know.
damn
And
straight
I'm
they
not
would.
saying that it's healthy, but it's just like that's a
No, I
weird
understand.
sentiment. Like
Yeah, no, I understand the point that you're making. I just think that it's so prevalent that it's like it's affecting their ability to communicate and be comfortable in social settings. And I'm not trying to speak for an entire generation or anything. There's
I
definitely
think the
some
scientific
very
data
good
would probably
communicators.
bear out what you're saying. I think it's probably
Yeah,
pretty
yeah. I mean,
clear.
there's
Yeah.
one of the largest payouts right now that has ever been paid out by these social media companies, mainly Facebook. There's a huge lawsuit, like one of those class action ones where they get thousands of people and stuff because they were fully aware of the damage that their technology has upon young people, and they still pushed it and didn't do anything about it. And so there's um, a big lawsuit against them right now
Yeah, I think that's
because for depression and things like
I
that.
mean totally. I mean, I think that's one of the main things that people are not really stoked about TikTok for like right now, you know what I mean? Cuz there are like these little 30 second to 1 minute or sometimes even
Right.
fewer seconds like sound bites and video bites and you're just flipping
Yeah.
through it and
You're not learning.
I mean sometimes I do, but yeah, for the most part I don't, you know.
Yeah, well, it's like a fun fact. It's like, cool, that's what happens to an egg underwater.
I'm glad I know that now.
Yeah, me too. But like,
But the rest of it is
it's
like 17-year-old millionaires filling their Teslas with bubbles and shit. And it's just
right.
like, what am I watching right now? Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to think that Bradbury was looking around at his society, his time, and already he was probably getting the feeling like, man, this is getting a little weird. Like there's TV dinners and there's all these different appliances. Because the
Yeah.
50s, remember, I mean, there was like the kind of mass exodus out to the suburbs. And
Hmm.
with that, and you know, people were getting lines of credit, so they were able to buy like more expensive household appliances and things like that. So there was a big push to get everybody to buy refrigerators and toasters and vacuums and all these different things that would make living in a kind of larger house with more square footage and more children, you know, like
Labor saving
right,
devices.
exactly. And I think that obviously a lot of those things were probably really helpful, but I think probably for Bradbury and a lot of other people living in that time who hadn't been introduced to anything like that before, that kind of surge in technology for the everyman.
Totally. I don't think he was afraid of the vacuum, but he was probably like, walking through the suburbs and just seeing like, wow, all these people used to have family dinners and now they're sitting in front of the TV.
Right. Yeah. I think the television probably.
Yeah, that was a big one. Did you have family dinners growing up?
Well, we had dinner every night. We all sat down together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't,
same.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't always like cool. It was like,
Yeah, no, sometimes.
it got a little weird
Didn't
there
want to.
sometimes. But yeah, like my parents made a point to at least get everybody together for like 45 minutes to an hour and just like sit and talk. I mean, sometimes with like music playing or something or whatever. But yeah, the TV was never on or anything
No.
like that. But I mean, now like I don't even remember like the last time that I ate something like by myself and I wasn't like watching something on my phone or like on my computer or something.
Reading.
Yeah, reading. Yeah, I read it while I'm eating sometimes too.
Can you imagine? It's like, well, I mean, alone, just like sitting there like an asshole. Just,
I see, like, yeah, I work in a restaurant and
it's like
I see
camping
that.
without a fire. You're just a bunch of assholes sitting in the woods in the dark.
Oh man, like it's so funny. Like I work in a restaurant and I see that sometimes. Like someone will come in, they'll get some food, they'll order something, and then we bring it out and they just like sit there and eat it and like kind of like look off into space. And it's like obviously there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's nothing at all wrong with that. Do it. I'm not telling anyone not to, but it's a little weird to like see them doing that. But it's also kind of weird is seeing somebody just kind of mindlessly shoveling food in their mouths, like while they're watching like a Kurzgesagt video or something, like on their, you know what I mean? So it's like there's really no middle ground there, I guess.
No, it's all weird.
One of the things that I noticed, getting back to like how this affects people on a personal level, is in my last relationship that I was in, when I started noticing that it wasn't going great. It kind of like started just, that feeling you get, it's the sun.
We've turned a corner.
The sun is setting on this relationship. The sun has set on our day in the sun. But yeah, I kind of started getting that feeling. And one of the things that had kind of contributed to that feeling was that we were watching way more TV together, like way more. And obviously couples watch TV together all the time. It's a totally normal thing to do. But it was like we were crushing TV shows.
Right. It's a way to spend time with each other without any chance of any stressful things.
Yeah, and there's a difference between being alone with somebody else. Have you heard that term before?
Just like doing your own thing, kind of.
Right. So there's like two different kind of versions of that. There's like I feel alone when I'm with you, right? Like that's
right. That's
bad,
not good,
right? But if you can be alone together, that's cool.
Like a mark of a good friend.
That's really cool. Like you and me would be able to just sit in a room and read together, right? Because we're besties, right? But if we had
just,
like
not hang out with you and hang out with you,
right? But if you and I were like roommates and whenever I came home, you were constantly on your phone or you were constantly like, I would try to say something and you were like super distracted and like just didn't, you know what I mean? I would feel alone when I was with you, I wouldn't feel like you and I were like having a friendship level like connection, or at least like a really good friendship level connection. So yeah, I don't think that Bradbury's trying to answer or be like necessarily prescriptive about anything with this story. I think he's just saying like, personal relationships might suffer because of this kind of ease of access, or like, the amount of entertainment that we're getting. It's going to swallow us, or it's going to swallow the ones that we love. Because obviously the parents get eaten by the big TVs, right? I mean, like or the Lions or whatever.
For sure. However, in your recap, you said that they were, and I think you're totally right, but I didn't get that at first. I thought that they were, yes, feeding the lions recreations of their parents, but I thought they were also finding strangers to put them in there.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think so. I think you're right.
I think that the kids wanted their parents to die. So because what the room does is it recreates your imagination.
Right. Read your mind.
Yeah, so the kids were getting more and more despondent. When I read this the first time, I thought the kids were telling the truth when they came into the room. Remember, the kids kind of come in from outside. They were at some kind of carnival or whatever. Oh, right. And their parents...
They were riding a helicopter.
Yeah, that was
cool. They were on helicopter rides.
That was a nice little... God, Ray Bradbury is so cool.
I know. I was just like, what? Did they come in some money or something? Who goes on helicopter rides?
People in the future. In the future, we all have our own helicopters.
Helicopter rides.
I do want to segue real quick, just like a tiny little segue. I am really disappointed in the frequency at which I am flying,
Me
which we should
too.
obviously, like, from all the pictures
Ah,
in the 50s and 60s that kind of predicted what the 2020s would be. We were all
yeah.
flying all the time, and I fly
Yeah, like the date
sometimes,
that
but
Marty McFly goes into the future, we passed that like 6 years
I
ago.
know. But anyway, fuck, what was I talking about?
I'm with
Uh,
you, bro. When they come back
oh yeah,
in
okay. So
from
they
helicopter
come back
rides.
in, and the first time that I read it, I thought they were telling the truth because the parents are like, "What's up with Africa in the nursery?" And the kids are like, "What are you talking about? Like, we don't even know." They're so despondent and so disconnected from their parents that they're able to lie in such a convincing, detached way, which it makes it a little creepier, honestly. Like these kids, and the
Yeah,
way that I see it, and I've read this twice now, and like these kids wanted their parents to die. Like they
right.
were thinking about their parents being eaten by lions, and those screams were the screams of themselves being eaten by lions, which is,
Yeah, she even says the scream sounds
yeah,
familiar.
it's really creepy when you start
Oh,
really
that's really
thinking
creepy.
about it.
Okay, so what leads them to that is kind of my question. So I had a question for you that I kind of, well, you've kind of answered it already, but I want your confirmation. And it's freaking weird that the company would refer to it, but they call it the nursery.
Yeah.
Like, how old are these kids? 18, 16, they're teenagers probably.
I don't. I always envision them as like preteens, like 12 or 13,
Okay,
something
okay,
like
yeah,
that.
but they're not like 4.
No, I
You don't
think
have a nursery when you're 13.
no. I mean, I think that nursery basically means like it's something that's taking care of the. It's like a toy. You know what I mean? It's like a thing to look
Okay, yeah,
after
but
the kids.
it's just weird that they would call it a
I think
nursery.
it makes sense to call it the nursery because the parents are not taking care of their kids. The room, yeah, the room is the nursery. The room is taking care of the kids.
Right, right. And the psychologist even says that.
Right, and like
Yeah.
there's like there's that old saying, like there's a whole generation of kids who's been raised by the television. It's like
Right.
that came into fruition after TVs became
Now they're
much
getting
more.
raised by YouTube and weird videos that are made like by algorithms. Have you ever seen those videos though that are
Which
made
one?
by the algorithms?
No, I don't think I
Oh,
have.
dude, there's just like kid videos out there that I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, so I get to see kid videos sometimes. And there's like these algorithms that'll just like make kid videos, but some of them are freaking weird.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody a little while ago, and they said that they felt like the next, like Gen Z and like the generation that's coming after Gen Z was like the dumbest generation. And I was like, what the hell are you talking
No.
about? Some of this, like,
Have
like they're,
you seen them use a
yeah. I
smartphone?
mean, like a lot of these kids are super smart. Like
Yeah.
it's like,
You won't be singing that tune next time you need to connect to
I
Wi-Fi
know, right?
somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, like every generation is dumb in some ways and super smart in others. Like
Totally.
there's no dumbing down of any generation. There's change. And that's, I think, another
Right.
thing in this book that is something that Bradbury had it kind of touched on, but like the fear of change. That's another really big one. I mean, and I don't think
Hmm.
that Bradbury was necessarily afraid of change, but I think there was probably some kind of current that was going on in the 50s when this was happening. And there's a current going on now. You know what I mean? It happens at every
Yeah.
generation where, you've got like this kind of, oh, I remember the way it used to be when kids would just go outside and play in the dirt and stuff.
Build forts.
Yeah, well, you know what? Those kids were getting abducted too, and the kid, like, child abduction is probably like way down now that they're all hanging out
Yeah,
playing video
it is.
games. So like, there's a give and take to all of it, like, but we
Totally.
can't fear that change. We have to be aware
We have to
of
guide it.
right. Yeah, exactly. We have to be aware of the like pitfalls of this
Hmm.
technology. Come together as a society and say, all right, here's the issue with this, right? Like, what can we do? And I've seen some movements, right, with cell phones, for instance. Some people say that the golden age of the cell phone was right before the BlackBerry came out. Right, it was like the
Mm.
Nokia phones and stuff like that, where basically all you
Yeah,
could really
yeah.
do on it was you could call and text, and you could play a couple games, and you had a calendar and a clock and everything that you needed on the phone.
Yep.
And I've seen a couple companies now put out. I think the slang for it is like a dumb phone. You know what I mean?
A
It's like,
dumb phone. Yep.
but basically, I mean, it's a cool phone. It's still touchscreen, but it doesn't have any kind of. There's no internet browser. There's like a navigation app, and because that's
Can
like
you imagine?
super important. I mean, I would probably try using that phone for a little bit, but now my whole like career is
Yeah,
kind of
dude. Yeah, I mean,
dependent
it's
on
just
my
like
phone.
I have to use
I
that
know, me
thing, you
too. I
know?
have to use it all the time. But it is just nice to think about that. While it's not in vogue right now, like nobody, people aren't going to go out and buy that kind of phone in droves right now because
Right.
iPhones and Androids are, I mean, they're computers, right? Like they're little
Right.
computers in our
It's a
pockets.
tool.
I mean, the camera on my phone, just the camera is
It's
incredible. It's a
incredible.
really good camera.
I saw a meme that was like a pile of technology, and it was like, here's all the stuff that would is in your that your phone can do, and here's what the size of the technology would have been in like the 60s or something. And it was like a pile the size of like a Volkswagen.
Yeah, no, seriously,
It's
it's
crazy.
it's pretty. I mean, even just a notepad. People used to just
Yeah.
carry around, and I'm sure people still do this, but like, people carried around little notebooks and pens.
Paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and like, I carry a journal in my bag. You know what I mean? Like, I write stuff down. I do journal every now and then, but
Yeah, like I got a pen and
yeah,
pad of
like
paper on my
I carry
desk,
it around. But I mean, I'm
sticky
but
notes.
like, if I really, I mean, mostly I use my phone. You know what I mean? Like, mostly
Totally.
I'm typing notes into my phone, and that's being able to type notes into your phone is not a pitfall of of the technology of the phone. We don't have to like
No.
throw the whole phone out because of
No. And I don't
like.
think I didn't get the sorry to cut you
No, you're
off.
fine.
Okay, I didn't get the impression that Ray was saying that either. I think that he was saying, "Hey guys, we're about to make a big turn here, and we're
Yeah.
about to have access to a lot of technology. Let's make sure that we're in control and we're being very intentional with the way that it affects our lives and our use case for it. Let's make sure that we still know how to cook an egg."
Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think that Ray Bradbury would approve of our current technological landscape?
Yes, I do.
I mean,
Yes, I
he
do.
only
Because
died like 10 years ago.
yeah, I was gonna ask you if he was a thing, but I didn't want to sound super ignorant. So
No,
I was like, is
he's.
he alive? I don't think he's
I
still
think he
alive.
died in 2012.
I think one of the reasons why he writes a story like this is that he loves the technology. He thinks it's really cool. He just envisions a lot cooler uses, which there are, and are we're using them for way cool things. Smartphones not all bad. It has added so much value to my life, but at the same time, you can't let it control you. And so I think it's a word of caution, but I think he was stoked.
Yeah, I mean, like there were people back in the. I'm sure there were people back in like the 20s and 30s that were saying people were reading newspapers too often. What will reading all these or like
Well,
when magazines, like these subscription magazines to like these more niche things, it's like, well, if
mm-hmm.
people have these whole magazines full of things that they really enjoy, they're never going to take their noses out of them,
Wow,
and
we'll probably be saying that about the next when virtual reality gets really mainstream. We'll be like, man, why can't we just have a phone, and you're not in this new world?
well, I mean, I like to believe, at least personally, that I think there's a certain amount of, I wouldn't call it like responsibility necessarily, but like I think there's like a certain amount of kind of engagement, I guess, that if you want to keep utilizing the things that are streamlining our society, try to stay in the loop on some of it at least, so that
Right.
I've had to help like my grandparents with like their computer with like pretty easy
Yep.
stuff, but it's only
Yeah,
easy to
like
me.
getting their printer to
Well, I
work.
mean, but this is kind of weird, but like, have you ever been trying to set up your bank account on like a different app or something? Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different, like, kind of like almost axiomatic, just obvious things that we're supposed to
Right.
do. It's like okay, well, the reason that it took me to this separate page was because this is a whole other form that I have to like
Right. Right. Let me give an example of what you're trying to
go for
say.
it.
We know innately, you and I, when to single click and when to double click on a computer. Our parents do not,
That's like, yeah, or our grandparents, but there are
or a
some. But see,
grandparent.
here's the thing, though, is it's like
I was like, Mom, you don't
there
even
are
do
a
it.
ton of tech savvy people in their 70s and 80s right now. I'm
Oh,
sure of it,
sure.
and I think that it's unfortunate that it's almost like a meme that old people don't know how to use technology. A ton of them know how to use
Mm-hmm.
technology.
Absolutely. They probably invented the damn stuff.
Yeah, I know. I wish we could put that myth to bed, but there are a lot who were stubborn about it and said, I'm not going to do it because I'm just fine without. And it's like the second they get it, they're
Yeah,
like,
my
oh
mom's like
wow.
double tapping apps on her phone.
But I mean, that I feel like that tune changes when you're able to actually get directions to a place you need to get, and it's like right on your phone. You can get there pretty quickly. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to keep developing. I mean, maybe in 30 years everybody's going to be wearing glasses with a an interface on it that takes up a big field of your vision, and people are going to be falling into manholes and stuff. Like I don't,
I
and we'll have
mean,
to have that conversation when it happens.
I think it's going to be very much an augment sort of situation. You know, like I do think that you're right. We're going to have some sort of glasses on that, but I think it'll be very much controlled by what we want. So like I don't think like most of my vision will be filled up with, like ads or like things that'll, you know, I think it'll just be like giving me pieces of information like as I'm looking around, and I can control the level of the feed that it's giving me, you know, the level of depth of the data that I'm receiving.
Well, see, we've only had to us in the year 2022, the year of our Lord 2022. We've only got our phones and what we've seen on TV that depicts what is the logical next step from our phones, right? But
Right.
the touchscreen interface smartphone wasn't
Ugh,
the logical next step from landlines. So there's always like an intermediary, and there's always like this other
right.
big thing that we weren't really thinking about, that none of the people back in the 60s, like if you showed somebody in the 70s a smartphone, they'd be like, what, you just touch it? That doesn't make any sense. Like,
But
where
those
are the
buttons are
buttons? Like,
tiny.
where, but
Yeah.
where, how does it know what you want it to do? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And then,
Like, does everyone have to take a class?
I mean, like, what if there was something that came out where it didn't involve your hands at all, right? Like, it's just
Yeah.
your eye movement, you know, and only you could see it or something. Because like using your
Yep.
hands and like some sort of physical interface in front of you would be really not. It would have almost zero utility to it because you'd constantly be reaching out in front of you into empty space, and there's
Oh, right. I
people
mean,
around.
that's why we can't drive with our phones. You know, I think honestly, that's you just nailed it. That's the next step in techno. That's the thing holding us back right now is the ability to interface with technology quickly. Because like the fastest thing we've got right now is like finger typing on a computer. I mean, yeah, we can talk into it, but you know that technology is like it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's all
Um,
right.
yeah, it's pretty
That's how
good. But
you and I
like,
talk
I'm
a
not
lot.
navigating my computer by being like, "Hey, computer, click on that." You know, I'm not interfacing with it that way. It's like a mouse. It's like we've been using this guy for the last 50
Yeah, a
years. You
long
know,
time. Yeah.
and it's pretty inefficient if you really think about it. We're a lot more capable than the mouse allows us to be, and I think that that's going to be the next big step in technology is something like you mentioned with the way your eye looks, scanning your retina or something that allows you to seamlessly interface, maybe think into it. Who knows?
But I mean, the cool thing about the progression of technology, at least in my opinion, is that it doesn't happen in these kinds of fits and starts, like it's kind of depicted, you know, in some different mediums that I've seen. It's like, it's not like all of a sudden they just dropped smartphones on everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like we all had, or not we all, but like people had cell phones. We all knew what a cell phone was. You know, they had
Mm-hmm.
Blackberries. It's like it's this incremental thing. So it's like, yes, at some point we might have computers that are going to be able to track our eye movements. And that sounds like a huge leap forward today, but you have to factor in the years of incremental change from regular computers. So they'll have like some kind of hybrid system where like some stuff you click on with your fingers or the mouse, and then some stuff is tracked by your eyes or
Right,
whatever, you
right.
know,
Like a
like,
glasses that you have to wear that you don't want to wear all the time because they're clunky or something, you know?
and that being said, it's like, it kind of gives me hope for our progression with technology as we go forward, is that it is incremental like that. We can be ready for each next step and do what Ray Bradbury wanted us to do, is to make sure like, okay, so what are the pitfalls with this? Okay, all
Right.
right, well, yeah.
I think we're pretty aware as a society of this technology being super negative sort of thing, you know? I mean, like go watch Black Mirror and
Yeah, I think we do
like
a pretty fairly, like a fairly good job at it. I
yeah.
mean, it's not
Yeah.
great, you know, but like there are things that kind of go into the social meta, you know what I mean, of like, don't open emails that seem sketchy. Like that took us a
Right.
while to figure out. You know what I mean? Like but now it's like we don't even need antivirus software, and just use this. Everybody knows it's like looking both ways before you cross the street. You know, it's
Right.
entered into the social consciousness. It's like if there's an email that says you won $1 million, do not click on that link. I mean, maybe, but like, no, it's not worth the risk. It'll probably mess up your whole computer and steal all of your information and stuff.
Yeah. Can I tell a quick anecdote?
Anecdotes are always welcome on the Book Reviews Kill
Excellent.
podcast. It's all
I used to
anecdotes,
work.
baby.
Perfect. It is very anecdotal. I used to work at a software company and we were hacked. We keep everything. I mean, this is like a $25 million company. You know, has like 60 employees. We keep everything on this one like drive. I mean, we had backups and stuff, but Not enough. And you say that like we all just know it's like looking both ways before crossing the sea. Well, fortunately for the company, it was the owner's wife who was the one who opened the email because we had to trace it back. But we got hacked from an email that she opened, and it locked down what we called a B24. It was the network that we stored everything on. And I mean, that's like everything was there. Like the company could not function. And these people wanted like $50,000 in Bitcoin or something in order to do it. Fortunately, it's a software company and we have a bunch of really, really smart developers and they were able to get through that. But it took them like a week.
Yeah, if I was going to hack a company and like hold their data for ransom, I wouldn't hack a software company.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up here, I wanted to ask if you noticed something. Did you notice that the kids' names are Peter and Wendy?
Oh.
You didn't notice that.
No. I mean, I did know that they were Peter and
Wendy. You knew that Peter and Wendy were names.
Right. Yeah.
Did you put that together, though, that their names are Peter and Wendy?
Not.
Yeah, they're going to Never Neverland. You know, and I mean, and even like Peter Pan,
where they never grow up,
right? Yeah, I know, right? And just, I mean, that's like just how awesome a writer.
That's got to be purpose.
Oh, of course,
on purpose.
Yeah, everything I've ever looked up about that story, it's like
like Ray Bradbury. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, like everything I've ever looked up about this story, because I, you know, the first time I read it, I was just like, oh, damn, that was really cool. Like, I wonder what everyone else has to say about it. And most people are like, did you notice it was Peter and Wendy, like in Peter Pan? And it is.
Oh man, I totally was oblivious.
I mean, and like Peter Pan obviously is like a that's pretty on the nose too. Never growing up,
right? And the thing's called the nursery,
right? Like the idea, this idea that these kids want to. I mean, you know, Wendy not as much, but Peter, the kids in Peter Pan want to remove themselves from this, from their own reality, and go to a place where they don't have to worry about anything. They don't have to grow up. That's why they're so attached to all these like inventions of convenience that make their lives so much easier. They don't have to work at anything, you know.
Even the kid says like, all we want to do is stand around and like watch stuff.
I know,
like right. That's all there is.
When he said that, I was like, this kid's rad. Like that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And I get that feeling myself too, honestly, all the time. Where I'm like, man, why do I have to like try and do things? Like I would much rather just like lay around and watch TV and just.
I get really bored easily. I was like, what the fuck? Watch stuff, you know?
I know you and I have vastly different temperaments, but I mean, I don't do it. I think I think it was Anthony Bourdain that said
you're too smart.
I think it was Anthony Bourdain that said there's a man inside of me that all he wants to do all day is get stoned and watch cartoons, and every day is a constant battle with that guy. And I feel that, like, I know it's like you don't give into that. I mean, you can, like, I mean, you see what happens. Like, it's
sometimes.
not, I mean, I do it every now and then, but if you want to, like, I don't know, like, it's not, I've done it, folks. Yeah. Like, it's not
well, I mean, great. You know, and you should do it sometimes. Well, yeah. It's good for your mental health.
Yeah.
You know?
But like it can't be like everything, you know? And like, I think that's another thing in this book that at least, you know, resonated with me. All of these inventions of convenience, like where's the line? Like where's the line where you don't even have like agency anymore? And that's what his parents are. That's what the kid's parents are wondering, right? What are we supposed to do now? Like I feel useless. Right. I feel like I don't have to wash anything. I don't have to clean anything. I don't have to iron anything. I don't have to cook anything.
Right.
Like,
their self-worth and identity is tied up in these household duties, you know?
Right. And, you know, and that kind of wraps around back to the question that I asked you. It's like, even with all this technology, like personally, like I do feel like I have quite a bit of agency, even though there's a lot of inventions of convenience around us. Like, I don't know if that's going to stay that way, or I don't know if I've just been conditioned to think I have agency because I haven't lived in another time. But I mean, I feel like I do.
Oh, yeah. And I think you do too. And I don't think it's even so much, I mean, definitely a matter of agency. But one thing that technology cannot, well, right now at least, cannot replace is relationship, right?
Oh, like, we're getting there, dude.
Yeah, I know. I was just gonna say, like, it can't ever actually. Okay.
Oh, we're like 10 years away from that,
dude. I know. I mean, Google just made their little robot that beat the Turing test.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a big debate right now as to whether or not it's sentient, but it's just a mimicker.
Man, that is a whole other.
We don't really
know.
Yeah,
we can if you want. We got time. But, oh my god, that is such a conversation.
Oh yeah. Let's find a short story about that.
I wonder if we could.
Let's get into it. I'm sure there's one.
I think that's gonna, and we don't have to have the entire full blown conversation about it right now because I do want to find a short story that is that has to do with that. But I have been wondering what kind of shift our society is going to take when we do create some form of like to put it bluntly, like a sex robot or or not a sex robot. Like that's too blunt. I mean, like
something that we can't tell the difference.
exactly. Like in that movie,
Yes.
AI, artificial intelligence, when like
Mhm.
Jude Law is like that, like
Yeah,
robot
yeah.
prostitute. I think honestly, man, like, and I don't even know if we'll keep this on the podcast, but like, I honestly really do think it's going to be as big as the internet.
Wait. Sex bots
Not
or
just sex bots, but like just like
oh, just
if
like
you could
AI friends.
program like in that movie, Her. Did you watch that? The Joaquin
I
Phoenix
think
movie?
so. Yeah. Yeah.
When we can start having companions that we could program, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a significant other with an off button, like
Mm-hmm.
that's going to change everything. Like that's going to get way
Everything.
weird. And it not only begs the question, what kind of effect would that have on social relationships in general when that's an option,
Yeah.
but also like what you were just talking about, it's like, is that thing sentient? Right? Like
Right.
that's
And that's the
I
thing
don't
is
know. I have
before we
no
even
idea.
kind of right, before we even kind of have that conversation, that you have to start at the base, which is what is sentience? And we don't know yet. In fact, can you tell me the field that is closest to the answer? It's still very, very, very far away, but the field of study and the career?
Anthropology?
No, anesthesiology.
Oh,
The people that put you to
that's a
sleep.
way different
Yeah,
answer than
it's
that.
they. I know. I get really surprised about this every time I learn it, but they're like, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because they're the ones who turn you off
Oof.
and then turn you back on. And so, like, they go into some really cool places in anesthesiology, is just, learning about consciousness and what is it. And so, like, almost like in their field of study, like, a lot of research has been done on that. They don't have an answer, but, they know how to turn it off.
Man, I'm gonna try to find a short story about
You
just
should.
that exact thing because yeah, I don't know what that's gonna be like. That's gonna be
Yeah.
really really
Dude, there's going to
weird. Like,
be,
would anybody even be with anybody else? Because like your initial knee
right, you could
jerk
like buy your
reaction
person.
is like, well, of course I would still be with like a human person, but it's like I don't know. Like if you could have a perfect, like what if an algorithm could figure out just like just like they figure out everything else that you seem to like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like if an algorithm or just you could order like when you're making a sandwich at the fucking store, like, all right, I want them to be like this, I want them to be like this, I don't want them to be like
Right.
this, I want them to look exactly like this. I mean, I don't I
Man,
it's a non-romantic answer, right?
it's
Like
very
yeah, it's like
unromantic.
the
Yeah,
least
it's very
romantic thing, but
unromantic.
why is
Have
it
you
not
seen?
romantic, Chad?
Because there's no mystery, like there's
That's a really
nothing
good
out of your
answer.
control.
That's
There's
such a
nothing out of
good
your
answer.
control.
I thought I stumped you there.
I was
You're
like,
like,
no,
no,
bro, I
I've
got
got like
this.
a total good answer for that.
Because there's risk. There's risk. Like romances
Yeah,
is
and that's
standing
part of
on
the
the
fun.
edge,
Yeah, yeah.
and like, man, if I can order the perfect
But what if you
person,
could program it? What if you could program like somebody,
make sure she's got a couple viruses in there.
right? Or make it so that the person that I program like doesn't text me back now and then, and I have to like wonder why. You know what I mean? And you could play that roller coaster
Right.
game. I don't know, man. We don't. But I know what you mean. Yeah, like the there is something to it. Those first few months that you're in a relationship with somebody, where it's like it's really
Right.
new and
Like
fun.
that fluttering
But
heart feel. I
but
wouldn't get that with something I could turn
what
off.
if you could keep having that for the rest of your life every few months?
What do you mean? Oh, like order a new one?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that
Huh.
that's my like desirable, that's what I want, but it's like because I think that there is something to I mean, like I think monogamy is really cool. I think polyamory is really cool too. Like I think all of it's fine, but it's like
You.
I think that there is something really cool and romantic about being with somebody and kind of like working out those kinks and like,
Yeah.
having those nights where you kind of both do go to bed and you're kind of annoyed with each other and like,
Yeah.
like you
It's not all roses. Like it's a lot of
like,
work.
why do you suck all the milk through the cereal when you eat it? Like, just eat the cereal. You know what I mean? Like, just
You smack, and I can't deal.
but I think that that would appeal to a ton of people. And honestly,
Oh
like, think
yeah.
about like if we had,
Well, it's appealing, but
well, it's appealing,
not
but
good for
like,
us,
I mean,
maybe.
like, think about it in the broader scope, right? Like, if we had technology that you could literally mimic, physically, emotionally, mentally, what it's like to actually be like in a committed, loving relationship with somebody else, right? Or maybe not even committed, but just like a loving relationship with somebody else.
We would have a population problem.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. It's like, and this all wraps back up into this short story. Like, I thought we weren't going to be able to do it, but we actually can. And it's that we need to think about the pitfalls. Like one pitfall of that
Right.
being the norm, which I feel like it would become the norm pretty quickly. Like the population would absolutely dip.
Oh yeah, I mean it's dipping already.
Yeah, it's dipping already.
Without that, you know.
So that would be one of the pitfalls. But one of the gains would be STDs would go down, unplanned pregnancies would go down.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like really interesting to think about. Like how much of a benefit would this surge in a new technology give us versus how much of a detriment would it be? That's going to wrap it up for us today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a nice, rambly, scientific, cool conversation. I really like these short story episodes. We're definitely going to keep doing these. And speaking of short stories, the next one that we're going to read is called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula K. Le Guin. And as a lot of you know, I am a gigantic Ursula Le Guin fan.
We're taking it local.
Chad, you haven't
style.
seen... Yeah, she is from Oregon.
Yeah.
But Chad, you haven't read any Ursula Le Guin, have you?
No.
Yeah.
No, I have like 3 of her books on my shelf,
cool.
but I have not read them.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, that's the next one that we're going to read. Go ahead and take some time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, go read that, and then join us on the next short story episode of Book Reviews Kill.
It's always such a pleasure having you guys join us, as always.
Everybody, hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.